How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, January 17th, 2022, MLK Day. I am James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances that took place yesterday on January 16th, which was the very first Sunday of the 2022 NFL playoffs. In addition to the NFL, we, of course, had a couple of basketball teams play yesterday that were in the top 25. Not to mention there were 4 NBA games as well, and of course a bunch of soccer games as we are in the second half of the soccer season, including Real Madrid claiming yet another trophy to their hundreds so far as a team. As a club. First, starting off at the collegiate basketball level with the 14th ranked team in the nation, the Villanova Wildcats hosted the unranked Butler Bulldogs. Villanova would end up beating Butler 82-42. They won this matchup by 40 after they outscored Butler by 16 in the first half and by 24 in the second. On the winning end of this matchup, the 14th ranked Wildcats were led in scoring by their starting guard Colin Gillespie out of Pennsylvania. He would go on to finish with 17 points and 5 rebounds in 29 minutes. He shot 6 for 7 from the field and 5 for 6 from 3. With this win, the 14th ranked Villanova Wildcats are now 13-4. They are now 6-1 in the Big East as they have the best record in the conference so far. With this loss, unranked Butler is now 9-7. They are 2-3 in the Big East. Looking at the 16th ranked team in the nation, the Ohio State Buckeyes hosted the unranked Penn State Nittany Lions from within the Big Ten. Ohio State would beat Penn State 61-56. They won this matchup by 5 after they outscored Penn State by 5 in the first half. On the winning end of this matchup, the 16th ranked Buckeyes were led in scoring by their starting forward, E.J. Liddell. He finished with 19 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 33 minutes. He shot 6 for 11 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and with this win, the 16th ranked Ohio State Buckeyes are now 11-4. They are now 5-2 in the Big Ten. With this loss, unranked Penn State is now 8-7. They are now 3-4 in the Big Ten. Taking a look at what's going on today in the world of college basketball, 2 top 25 teams face off as the 25th ranked Illinois Fighting Illini host the 7th ranked Purdue Boilermakers. Illinois is the last remaining team that's undefeated in Big Ten play. Purdue is 3-2 in the Big Ten as Illinois is 6-0. As both of Purdue's losses in the Big Ten are their only 2 losses all season. Taking a look now at what's going on at the professional level, starting off with the NFL. The NFL is currently in its playoff stage. Coming into yesterday's matchups, there were 12 teams left competing for Super Bowl 56. And coming into today, following yesterday's matchups, there are now 9. Taking a look at the first matchup to take place in Tampa Bay, the site of Super Bowl 55 last year, the NFC South champions Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosted the Philadelphia Eagles, who finished with the 7th seed in the NFC. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers would end up beating the Eagles 31-15 as they will advance to the next round. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers would score their first 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. Their first touchdown, a 2-yard touchdown run for Giovanni Bernard. Their second one, a 1-yard touchdown run from Keyshawn Vaughn with 25 seconds left in the quarter. The only score in the second quarter would be a 34-yard field goal from Ryan Succop as the Buccaneers made it 17-0. In the third quarter, the Buccaneers would get 2 more touchdowns. Tom Brady threw a 2-yard touchdown to his favorite tight ends that ever played football with him, Rob Gronkowski, to make it 24-0. And then Tom Brady would throw a 36-yard touchdown pass to Mike Evans to end the third quarter with a 31-0 deficit over the Eagles. The Eagles would score all 15 of their points in the fourth quarter. Their first touchdown coming off of a 34-yard touchdown run from Boston Scott about 3 minutes in. And then their second touchdown coming with 4.5 minutes left. It was a 16-yard touchdown pass from Jalen Hurts to Kenneth Gainwell. And they would convert on the 2-point conversion to Devontae Smith. And with this win, the Eagles will be the first team in the NFC that would get eliminated. Taking a look at how both teams fared statistically, in their final game of the 2021 campaign, the Philadelphia Eagles would be led by their starting quarterback and former Heisman winner Jalen Hurts out of Oklahoma. Hurts would complete 23 of his 43 passes as he threw for 258 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. He was also the team's leading rusher as he ran for 39 yards. He would finish with 297 total yards of offense. offense. Their leading receiver, Dallas Goedert, finished with 6 receptions for 92 yards. Their elite wide receiver, Devontae Smith, would finish with 4 receptions for 60 yards on the day. Their third leading receiver, Kenneth Gainwell, had 49 yards on 5 receptions as he had a receiving touchdown. He also had 6 rushing yards, so he had 55 total yards of offense. On the defensive side of the ball, the Eagles were led in tackles by Alex Singleton. He had 16 tackles on the day as he had a sack. Anthony Harris would finish with 13 tackles as well. Ryan Kerrigan would finish with 3 tackles as he had a sack and a half. And on the winning end of this matchup, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would be led by their goated starting quarterback, Tom Brady, out of Michigan. The 7-time Super Bowl champion would complete 29 of his 37 passes as he threw for 271 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Buccaneers' leading rusher was Keyshawn Vaughn. He would finish with 17 carries for 53 yards and a touchdown on the ground. He had 9 yards through the air, giving him 62 total yards of offense. Their second leading rusher, Giovanni Bernard, had 13 carries for 44 yards and a touchdown on the ground. He was also the team's second leading receiver as he had 39 yards through the air. He finished with 83 total yards of offense. The Buccaneers' leading receiver was their elite wide receiver out of Texas A&M, Mike Evans. Evans would finish with 9 receptions for 117 yards as he had one of the team's 2 receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Mike Edwards was the Buccaneers' leading tackler as he had 9 of them. The Buccaneers' 2 sacks went to Antoine Winfield Jr. and Steve McClendon. In addition to leading the team in tackles, Mike Edwards would finish with an interception. Shaq Barrett would also finish with an interception for himself as well, as Shaq Barrett would go on to finish with no tackles. That was his interception was what the team needed for the day. And then, of course, Ross Cockrell would go on to recover a fumble to go along with his tackle. With this win, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will now advance to the next round, where they are slated to face off against the winner between the Los Angeles Rams and the Arizona Cardinals tonight. But, of course, I digress. Following that matchup, there were 11 teams remaining. Jumping out to Dallas in the Jerry Jones Dome, the Cowboys, the 2021 NFC East champs, hosted the San Francisco 49ers, who came into this matchup with the 3rd best record in the NFC West. The San Francisco 49ers would end up beating the Dallas Cowboys so that they would advance to the next round. They won this matchup 23-17 as they outscored the Cowboys 16-7 in the first half. Cowboys outscored the Niners 10-7 in the second half. The Niners outscored the Cowboys 10-0 in the first quarter as Elijah Mitchell's 4-yard touchdown run and Robbie Gould's 53-yard field goal made it 10-0. The Niners opened the second quarter with a 40-yard field goal from Robbie Gould, making it 13-0. Dallas's first score would be a 20-yard touchdown pass from Dak Prescott to their elite wide receiver, Amari Cooper, making it 13-7. Robbie Gould would end the first half on a 52-yard field goal, making it 16-7, giving the Niners a 9-point lead. The third quarter would, of course, be occupied by the Niners' last score of the game, a 26-yard touchdown run from Deebo Samuel. The Cowboys would score 10 points in the fourth quarter as Greg Zuerlein kicked a 51-yard field goal. Dak Prescott would run 5 yards, and they would have the opportunities late in the game, but they just would not be able to score late against that San Francisco 49ers defense, and the Niners were able to come away with this win. On the losing end of this matchup, in their final game of the 2021 season, the Dallas Cowboys were led by their starting quarterback out of Mississippi State. Dak Prescott would complete 23 of his 43 passes as he threw for 254 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He also ran for 27 yards and a touchdown. He would combine for 281 total yards of offense and 2 touchdowns. Their leading receiver, Dalton Schultz, would go on to finish with 89 yards on 7 receptions. Their elite wide receiver, Amari Cooper, finished with 6 receptions for 64 yards as he finished with the team's lone receiving touchdown. Also their third leading receiver, Cedric Wilson, had 5 receptions for 62 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, the Cowboys' leading tackler was Leighton Vander Esch out of Boise State. He would finish with 13 tackles. Their second leading tackler was their elite linebacker out of Penn State, Micah Parsons. He finished with 10 after he was named to the all-team after he was named to the All-Pro team after his first full season in the NFL. The team's lone interception went to Anthony Brown, who finished with 5 tackles for himself. On the winning end of this matchup, the San Francisco 49ers were led by their starting quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. Garoppolo would go on to complete 16 of his 25 passes as he threw for 172 yards and an interception. Their leading rusher was Elijah Mitchell. He had 27 carries for 96 yards and a touchdown. Their second leading rusher, Deebo Samuel, had 10 carries for 72 yards as he had a touchdown. He also had 3 receptions for 38 yards as he would go on to finish with 110 total yards of offense for himself with his rushing touchdown. The team's leading receiver was Brandon Ayuk as he had 5 receptions for 66 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, the Niners were led in tackles by Emmanuel Mosley. He had 12 of them. The Niners would combine for 5 sacks as Eric Armstead would have a sack for himself among his 4 tackles. Charles Omenihu would finish with 3 tackles as he had a sack and a half. Their elite defensive end, Nick Bosa, would finish with 3 tackles as he had half of a sack. And DJ Jones would finish with 1 tackle as his lone tackle was a sack. Kawan Williams would finish with 2 tackles as he finished with the team's lone interception. With this win, the San Francisco 49ers, as the lowest seed to advance to the next round, are the team that will be slated to face off against the Green Bay Packers because the Philadelphia Eagles were unable to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, of course, with this loss, after the Cowboys lost, there were officially 10 teams left competing in the NFL. And then jumping to the last game of last night, jumping out to Kansas City, the reigning AFC champs and the 2021 AFC West champs, Kansas City Chiefs, would host the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were the AFC North runners-up. The Chiefs would end up beating the Steelers 42-21 as they will advance to the next round, and they will face off against the Buffalo Bills for the second year in a row. Taking a look at how both teams got here, of course, scoring-wise, the Chiefs would go on to outscore the Steelers 21-7 in the first half before outscoring the Steelers again 21-14 in the second half. The Steelers opened up the scoring in the second quarter off of a 26-yard fumble return from their elite defensive end, TJ Watt, who this season would tie Michael Strahan's single-season sack record. So, of course, to put a cherry on top for his amazing season, despite the fact that the Steelers did not advance. The Chiefs would open up their scoring about 5 minutes later after Patrick Mahomes threw a 4-yard touchdown pass to Jerick McKinnon, tying it up at 7. With about 2 minutes left, Patrick Mahomes would throw a 12-yard touchdown pass to Byron Pringle to put the Chiefs up by a touchdown. And he would end the first half with a 48-yard touchdown pass to his elite tight end out of Cincy, Travis Kelsey, to make it 21-7 going into halftime. In the third quarter, Patrick Mahomes would end up throwing a 1-yard touchdown pass to Nick Allegretti to make it 28-7. And then he would throw another touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill as Patrick Mahomes would end up throwing 5 unanswered touchdowns that would stretch over about a 12-minute span from the second and third quarter to go from being down 7-0 to being up 35-7. And then the Steelers' next score would be with about 4 minutes left in the third as Ben Roethlisberger threw a 13-yard touchdown pass to Deontay Johnson, making it 35-14. The Chiefs would open the fourth quarter with a 2-yard touchdown pass from Travis Kelsey to Byron Pringle. And then James Washington would catch a 15-yard touchdown pass from Ben Roethlisberger. After that, there would be no more scoring, and the Chiefs would go on to lock this game up, and they made sure that they will play their next playoff game at home as well. Taking a look at how both teams fared statistically on the losing end of this matchup in their final campaign of the 2021 campaign and in Ben Roethlisberger's final season as a starting quarterback, at least according to him, Ben Roethlisberger would complete 29 of his 44 passes as he threw for 215 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Steelers' leading receiver was James Washington. He had 2 receptions for 37 yards as he had a receiving touchdown. Their leading tacklers were Terrell Edmonds, Joe Hayden, and then their elite safety, Minkah Fitzpatrick. They each had 6 tackles themselves. Their elite defensive end, TJ Watt, would finish with 3 tackles as he had a sack and a fumble recovery. Alex Highsmith would finish with 3 tackles and a and a sack as well. Montravius Adams would finish with 2 tackles as he had the team's third sack of the day as well. The team's lone interception went to Devin Bush, as Devin Bush would go on to finish with 1 tackle alongside his interception. On the winning end of this matchup, the Kansas City Chiefs were led by their elite starting quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, out of Texas Tech. He would end up completing 30 of his 39 pass attempts as he threw for 404 yards, 5 touchdowns, and an interception. He also ran for 29 yards. That's 433 total yards of offense. Their leading rusher, Jerick McKinnon, had 12 carries for 61 yards. He also had 6 receptions for 81 yards and a receiving touchdown. He finished with 142 total yards of offense for the day, as his lone touchdown came through the air. The Chiefs' leading receiver was their elite tight end, Travis Kelsey. He had 5 receptions for 108 yards and a touchdown. He also had a 2-yard touchdown pass, so he had 110 total yards of offense and 2 touchdowns in his name. The Chiefs' third leading receiver, Demarcus Robinson, had 4 receptions for 76 yards. And then their elite wide receiver, Tyreek Hill, finished with 5 receptions for 57 yards and a touchdown. Their sixth leading receiver, Byron Pringle, finished with 5 receptions for 37 yards as he had 2 of the team's 6 receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, L'Jarius Sneed and Nick Bolton led the team in tackles as they each would finish with 8 on the day. Frank Clark finished with 4 tackles as he recovered a fumble. Mike Dana and Tershawn Wharton finished with the team's 2 sacks. And with this win, the Kansas City Chiefs will face off against the 3rd seed Buffalo Bills after the Bills beat the Patriots by 30 a couple nights ago. And of course, following these matchups, taking a look at the game that's going to be taking place tonight, the Los Angeles Rams, who won the NFC West and now hold the 4th seed in the NFC, will host the Arizona Cardinals, who finished with the top wild card seed. This game will be on ESPN at 8:15, as this matchup will be in SoFi Stadium. Coming into tonight, there are 9 teams left competing for the title. Coming out, there will be 8 teams left in the playoffs as we get into our divisional round. And looking at the games that are already set, next Saturday's matchups look as though they're going to be the Titans and the Bengals at 4:30, as that is the 1-4 matchup out in the AFC. And then the NFC will feature the 1-6 matchup between the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers. Looking at the games that have already been set for Sunday, the Chiefs are going to host the Bills. That will be the 2-3 matchup in the AFC. That matchup will be on CBS. And then the Buccaneers are going to host the winner of this Rams and Cardinals matchup at 3 o'clock on Sunday. But of course, as we get closer to that, I will be more accurate and more exact. Taking a look now at what's going on in the NBA following yesterday's matchup. Starting off in Detroit, the Pistons hosted the Phoenix Suns, the reigning Western Conference champions. The Phoenix Suns would end up beating the Detroit Pistons 135-108. They won this matchup by 27 after they outscored the Pistons by 6 in the second and by 11 in the third by a combined 17 points in the middle 2 quarters. On the losing end of this matchup, the Detroit Pistons were led in scoring by their starting point guard and rookie Cade Cunningham and their point guard off the bench, Corey Joseph. Cunningham finished with 21 points in 25 minutes. He shot 9 for 15 from the field and 2 for 3 from the foul line. Joseph finished with 21 points and 7 assists in 27 minutes. He shot 5 for 11 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, and 7 for 8 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Phoenix Suns were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard, Devin Booker. Booker finished with 30 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists in 30 minutes. He shot 11 for 18 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, and 7 for 10 from the foul line. Their center off the bench, JaVale McGee, finished with 20 points and 6 rebounds in 15 minutes. He shot 9 for 10 from the field and 2 for 4 from the foul line. Their point guard off the bench, Cameron Payne, finished with 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in 31 minutes. He shot 8 for 12 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and he made his only free throw attempt of the night. Their elite starting point guard out of Wake Forest, Chris Paul, finished with 10 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists in 27 minutes. Paul shot 4 for 10 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the Phoenix Suns are now 33-9. That is still the best record in the West and the best record in all of the NBA. They are still the only team in the NBA with a single-digit amount of losses thus far. They've won their last 3 games, and they've won 7 of their last 10. They sit 2.5 games ahead of the second-place Golden State Warriors in the conference. With this loss, the Detroit Pistons are now 10-32. That is the second worst record in the entire Eastern Conference. They've lost 5 of their last 10 games. They sit 12 games behind the 8th seed Toronto Raptors out east. Taking a look at what went down in Sacramento, the Kings hosted the Houston Rockets. The Rockets would end up beating the Kings 118-112. The Rockets would win this matchup by 6. They would go on to outscore the Kings by 11 in the second half, by 9 in the fourth quarter to overcome their 6-point deficit, or to overcome their 3-point deficit going in. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown Sacramento Kings were led in scoring by their shooting guard off the bench, Buddy Hield out of Oklahoma. He finished with 27 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 steals in 30 minutes. He shot 9 for 16 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Houston Rockets were led in scoring by their starting center, Christian Wood. Wood finished with 23 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 steals in 33 minutes. He shot 8 for 15 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3 as well. Their starting shooting guard, Kevin Porter, finished with 23 points and 7 assists, as well as 2 steals and 6 turnovers in 36 minutes. He shot 6 for 12 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Houston Rockets are now 13-32. That is the worst record in the Western Conference. They've won 3 of their last 10 games. They sit 9 games behind the 8th seed LA Lakers out west, and the Minnesota Timberwolves, because that's where they're tied with. And with this loss, the Sacramento Kings are now 18-28. That is the 5th worst record in the Western Conference. They've lost 7 of their last 10. They sit 4.5 games behind the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Los Angeles Lakers for that 7-8 spot out west. Taking a look at what went down in Minneapolis, the Minnesota Timberwolves hosted the Golden State Warriors. The Timberwolves would beat the Warriors 119-99 to get themselves into that playoff picture scenario. They won this game by 20 after they outscored the Warriors by 8 in the first quarter and by a combined 14 in the second half. On the winning end of this matchup, the Golden State Warriors were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Jordan Poole. Poole finished with 20 points in 33 minutes. He shot 5 for 13 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 7 for 7 from the foul line. Their elite starting shooting guard out of Washington State, Klay Thompson, finished with 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists in 23 minutes. He shot 5 for 14 from the field, and he shot 3 for 8 from 3. On the winning end of this matchup, the Timberwolves were led in scoring by their elite starting center, Karl Anthony Towns. Towns finished with 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 30 minutes. He shot 11 for 20 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3, and 3 for 5 from the foul line. Their elite starting small forward out of Georgia, Anthony Edwards, finished with 9 points and 2 assists in 28 minutes. He shot 3 for 8 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and he made his only free throw attempt of the night. With this win, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now 21-22. They are tied with the Los Angeles Lakers for the 7th best record in the West. They've won 5 of their last 10 games, as they now sit 12.5 games behind the first seed Phoenix Suns in the conference. With this loss, the Golden State Warriors are now 31-12. That is the 2nd best record in the Western Conference and the 2nd best record in the NBA. They and the Suns are the only 2 teams that have 30-plus wins in the NBA at this point. They sit 2.5 games behind the Western Conference leading Phoenix Suns at the moment. Last but not least, jumping out to Denver, the Nuggets hosted the Utah Jazz. The Jazz would beat the Nuggets 125-102. The Jazz won this matchup by 23 after they would go on to outscore the Nuggets by 10 in the first half, and then they would outscore the Nuggets by 20 in the fourth quarter alone. On the losing end of this matchup, the Denver Nuggets were led in scoring by their elite starting center and last year's MVP, Nikola Jokic. Jokic finished with 25 points, 15 rebounds, 14 assists, and 2 steals in 37 minutes. He shot 10 for 18 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and he would go on to make all 3 of his free throws on the night. Their starting power forward, Aaron Gordon, finished with 20 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists in 35 minutes. He shot 8 for 15 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and he made both of his free throws. On the winning end of this matchup, the Utah Jazz were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard, Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell finished with 31 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 35 minutes. He shot 11 for 24 from the field, 4 for 12 from 3, and he shot 5 for 7 from the foul line. Their starting small forward, Bojan Bogdanovic, finished with 21 points and 5 assists in 31 minutes. He shot 8 for 15 from the field, and he would go on to shoot 4 for 6 from the foul line. Their elite starting center, Rudy Gobert, finished with 18 points, 19 rebounds, and 2 assists, as well as 2 blocks in 35 minutes. He would shoot a perfect 7 for 7 from the field, and he shot 4 for 7 from the foul line. With this win, the Utah Jazz are now 29-14. That is the 3rd best record in the Western Conference. They've won 5 of their last 10 games. They sit 4.5 games behind the 1st seed Phoenix Suns out west. With this loss, the Denver Nuggets are now 22-20. That is the 6th best record in the Western Conference. They've lost 4 of their last 10 as they now sit 11 games behind the 1st seed Phoenix Suns for the conference. That is what the NBA is looking like today, or looking like following yesterday's matchups, and looking at today's matchups for Monday, starting off with the primetime games on NBA TV because it is MLK Day. At 1 o'clock, the New York Knicks are going to host the Charlotte Hornets on NBA TV. The Knicks come into this matchup holding the 10th best record in the East. The Hornets come into this matchup holding the 7th best record in the East, as the Knicks currently are sitting 1 game behind the Charlotte Hornets in the playoff push. Taking a look at what's going on at 3:30, the Memphis Grizzlies are going to host the Chicago Bulls in the FedEx Forum on TNT. The Grizzlies come into this matchup holding the 4th best record in the Western Conference. The Bulls come into this matchup holding the best record in the Eastern Conference, even though the Grizzlies are currently holding a better record than the Bulls at the moment. Looking at 6 o'clock, the Atlanta Hawks in MLK's hometown are going to host the defending champs, the Milwaukee Bucks. That game is going to be on TNT. That one's going to be in State Farm Arena. The Atlanta Hawks are coming into this matchup with the 4th worst record in the East after making it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. This is a matchup game, or a rematch game. The Bucks come into this matchup holding the 4th best record in the East as they sit only 2 games behind the 1st place Chicago Bulls. The last primetime matchup game is going to be at 10:30 as the LA Lakers are going to host the Utah Jazz. After LeBron James promised on his Instagram that the Lakers were going to do better, the Lakers are currently sitting with the 8th best record in the West, tied with the Timberwolves for the 7th best record in the West in a sense, as the Lakers are holding a 3-game losing streak. And the Jazz come into this matchup with the 3rd best record in the West as they sit 4.5 games behind the West Conference leading Phoenix Suns. Looking at the games that aren't on prime time, at 12:30, the Boston Celtics are going to host the New Orleans Pelicans at TD Garden. At 2 o'clock, the Washington Wizards are going to host the Philadelphia 76ers at the Capital One Arena. At 3 o'clock, the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to host the Brooklyn Nets at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. At 3:30, the LA Clippers are going to host the Indiana Pacers at the Crypto.com Arena. At 7 o'clock, the Orlando Magic are going to host the Portland Trailblazers at the Amway Center. At 7:30, the Miami Heat are going to host the Toronto Raptors at FTX Arena. At 8:30, the Dallas Mavericks are going to host the Oklahoma City Thunder at American Airlines Center. And then at 8:30, the San Antonio Spurs are going to host the Phoenix Suns at the AT&T Center. Taking a look now at what's going on in the world of soccer, starting off with the lone trophy that was won yesterday. In the Spanish Supercopa final, Real Madrid was able to beat Athletic Bilbao 2-0 despite picking up a red card in the 87th minute. Their first goal will come in the 38th minute from their elite Croatian midfielder and former Ballon d'Or winner Luka Modric. Their second goal will come in the 52nd minute off of a penalty kick from their elite French striker Karim Benzema, and they are able to win Spain's first trophy of the 2022 calendar year. Taking a look now at what's going on in the domestic league, starting off in the Premier League, Tottenham and Arsenal ended up getting postponed, but Liverpool ended up hosting Brentford. They ended up winning that matchup 3-0. Their first goal will come in the 44th minute from Fabinho. Their second goal will come in the 69th minute from Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, and then Takumi Minamino will score in the 77th minute. With their 3 points, they would gain 3 points in the table. Liverpool now sits 11 points below first place Man City with one less game played. But the win was much needed for them, so congratulations on them for getting it. And now taking a look at what went down in Italian Serie A. Roma hosted Cagliari, and they were able to pull off a 1-0 win as their lone goal came in the 33rd minute off of a penalty kick from Sergio Oliveira. Following this matchup, Roma is sitting 6th as they are barely within Europa League territory, sitting about even with Lazio, but they needed this win. In Inter Milan, the reigning Serie A champs, ended up drawing with Atalanta. With this draw, Atalanta now sits 4th in the table, 1 point ahead of Juventus with one less game played. And then Inter now sits at the top of Serie A, only 2 points clear of AC Milan, meaning that a draw for them and a win for Milan could possibly see Milan overtake Inter if Inter loses a matchup and if AC Milan wins. So this draw did put Inter at stake. And then taking a look at what went down in Ligue 1, Lille drew with Marseille as the reigning Ligue 1 champs. With this draw, are now sitting with the 10th best record in Ligue 1, just to get a sense of where they are. Looking at the Africa Cup of Nations, Mali drew with Gambia 1-1 in this group stage matchup. Mali scored the first goal from Ibrahima Kone in the 79th minute off a penalty kick, and Gambia would tie it 1-0, or would tie it at 1 off of a Musa Baro penalty to make it 1-1 in the 90th minute. Taking a look at the next matchup that took off, Ivory Coast was able to beat Sierra Leone 2-2. Sebastian Haller scored the first goal for Ivory Coast, making it 1-1. Sierra Leone would even it up at 1 in the 55th minute off of a goal from Moussa Kamara. Ivory Coast made it 2-1 off of Nicola Pepe in the 65th minute, and then Sierra Leone was tied in the 93rd minute from Alhaji Kamara. Big draw for both, as Ivory Coast still sits on top of that group. Sierra Leone sits 3rd in that group. Taking a look at the next group stage matchup that was taking place yesterday, Tunisia would face off against Mauritania, and Tunisia would win this 4-0. Their first goal coming in the 4th minute from Hamza Mathlouthi. Their second goal coming from Wabi Kazri, and their third goal coming from him as well, as they went up 3-0. Their fourth goal will come in the 66th minute from Seyfedine Jaziri to make it 4-0. With this win, Tunisia now sits 3rd in the group, as Mauritania now sits at the very bottom, as they still have yet to win in this group stage. And then looking at the last group stage game from yesterday, Algeria faced off against Equatorial Guinea, and Equatorial Guinea was able to pull off the 1-0 win. Their lone goal coming from Esteban Obiang. They are now sitting 2nd in their group with this win, as they sit 1 point below Ivory Coast. Taking a look at what's going on today in the world of soccer, starting off with the Africa Cup of Nations, Burkina Faso is going to face off against Ethiopia, and Cape Verde is going to face off against Cameroon, as these two matchups are the third and final matchups for this group, as the seeding is going to begin to take place. And once the seeding is done, of course, I'll preview the round as we get there. Taking a look at the Serie A matchups taking place today, AC Milan, who's currently holding that second spot in Serie A, has a chance to leapfrog Inter in the tables as they face off against Spezia. Spezia is currently holding the 5th worst record in Serie A at the moment. Napoli is going to face off against Bologna, as Napoli holds the 3rd best record. A win could get them closer to 2nd place AC Milan, as they desperately need a win here. Fiorentina are going to face off against Genoa at 2:45, as Fiorentina sits 8th in the table. They sit 3 points behind 6th place Roma, so a win is very crucial considering they've played 2 less games. So if they are able to make the most of these games, they very well could see themselves leapfrogging into favorable position. But that's everything I have for you as we are here on Monday, January 17th, 2022. I want to thank the ESPN, NCAA, NBA, NFL, and FIFA website for giving me all the facts and figures that I needed for this episode. And of course, I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to apologize for all the names that I butchered. I do plan on eventually getting them right. And once all of today's exhibitions are done, I will come back tomorrow on Tuesday, January 18th for another episode of The Elite. So until then, thank you for listening to my piece. I hope all is well, and I'll come back with an episode tomorrow. Peace out, and I'll catch you tomorrow.